Hi there, welcome along to another edition of Sporting Lives, where we look back through the career of somebody who made their name in sport. And I'm delighted to welcome to this episode a rugby league player. Well, I guess as a Leeds fan back in the day, I was kind of hoping he wouldn't do that well against my team because he played for arch rivals Bradford Northern, but also had a distinguished career with other clubs as well, the likes of Keighley, hometown for him, York and Hunslet, and then carried that on as well into a successful coaching career. Welcome along to Sporting Lives, Peter Roe.
Jonathan, good evening. Nice to see you.
It's great to see you too. And it's going to be good for me, is this, hopefully for our regulars as well, to look at your career because, as I say, I was kind of, at the other side of things as a fan on the terraces, as a young lad watching you play. And of course, wanted my team to win. But I think, like lots of sports spectators and fans, there's a great respect for your opponents. And you kind of, you wanted Bradford Northern to be a pretty good side because it meant something when you beat them then. And I guess in reverse, you wanted Leeds probably to be a good side so that when you got one over on them, it felt more important having those bragging rights.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way of putting it. I mean, I'll go back to that in a second, but I think in the modern era, in 2021, the Bulls are where they are, which is very sad. Hopefully on the way back. Rhinos had a couple of lean years, but appear to be benefiting from their investment in the junior setup. And from a complete neutral now, I would like to see both clubs go back to what they were in the early 2000s, where they were getting 17,000 people watching them when it was on live TV and creating a great atmosphere to show the rest of the sporting country that rugby league is a tip-top game. Going back to what you said, Jonathan, to play the Rhinos was always a bit special. In the 60s and early 70s as a child, when Leeds played on a Saturday, in what was a game before Super League came in, Leeds used to play on a Saturday and they were getting 5, 6, 7,000. Actually, was a Leeds Rugby League fan because they played on a Saturday and my heroes were John Atkinson and Alan Smith. I used to then go watch Keighley on a Sunday because the game transferred to a Sunday game, but Leeds always played at home on a Saturday during those early decades. So, whilst you and I have been associated with two rivals, I have a bit of a closer connection with the Leeds than you possibly thought I had.
Well, that's the great thing about these podcasts, learning things that you didn't already know. And I certainly didn't have a clue that you'd been grown up as a Leeds fan. So what did it feel like then, turning out, playing against them for your team? Or was that just a case of being professional and doing the job you were paid to do on the day?
Well, again, we go back because before I moved to Bradford, I was at Keighley, obviously, as a really young 17, 18-year-old. Bradford signed me, but I actually played with a hero of mine, John Atkinson, for Yorkshire, whilst I was still an 18-year-old playing at Keighley. So I was actually sent to an absolute hero of mine. And I never told him because I was a bit embarrassed, really. But him and Alan Smith were two heroes of mine. And to play with John Atkinson for Yorkshire, who also was a sort of a green on, learning his trade at Keighley. Absolutely fantastic to be selected in a representative team with a guy that I'd admired for years. Incredible.
I don't know if it still stands or not, but certainly at the time you were the youngest player that Yorkshire had ever selected. Am I right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, which is again. I don't ever tell people stuff because I don't talk about rugby anymore much. But yes, I was, and to be fair, it was played at Keighley. Now, whether that was something to do with the selection, I don't know. But I thought I warranted it, and we went on to enjoy a few games together, John and I.
Yeah, very fine player, and also one of my heroes. Growing up just that little bit younger than you, watching from the Western Terrace at Headingley. Yeah, we've jumped straight in there, but it just felt appropriate to do that. We can wind things back, and let's just talk about how you got into it in the first place, because from reading up a bit of background about you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, you are clearly talented across several sports, football being one, with a couple of professional clubs showing some interest, rugby union, of course, as well as league. And I know that you played cricket. I'm not quite sure whether your abilities measured up in that respect as well. So several things to go at. What made you decide rugby league was the way to go?
Well, it happened really when I was living on a farm, if you like, and fell out of a tree, pretending to be a monkey, I think.
As you do.
Yeah. I'd been to Sheffield United, I'd been to Man United. I was going back to Sheffield during an Easter period where I hoped to be signed as an apprentice professional. I was climbing a tree at this farm where we lived, and the branch broke, and I ended up on the floor in absolute agony. And once covered, I damaged my back really badly. And for 12 months, I could do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So no rugby, no soccer, no, as I call it, soccer, no cricket, nothing, no athletics, couldn't do anything. And I never pushed myself in any sport, really. And I thought, well, Sheffield United aren't going to really want me anymore. They kept writing to me, and I thought, well, it's pointless me going back, because if I do badly, they'll strike me off. So I never went back again. At the same time, I'd been playing junior rugby league, but again, didn't play for a year. And as soon as my back started to get better, I just went back to playing junior rugby league. And Keighley Rugby League signed me from then on, and never played a game of football again, Jonathan.
And what about the cricket side of things? Were you playing that as a youngster as well?
Yeah, I played cricket from the age of 11. Not particularly a good player by any means. I was a bit of a lunatic.
For whom? Which club did you play for? Clubs?
I played for Riddlesden in what was the old West Bradford League. That's now defunct. As a junior, then I played in the first team as a really young kid. Kept wicket, did okay, but really too tall to be a wicket keeper. 6'2". I was okay stood back, but over the top, when I think that's how a keeper's judged. Wasn't too clever, really. So, but went on to play cricket till I was 43. Ended up at Skipton in the Airwolf League. Crazy.
Good club, Keighley, of course. Good cricket club over the years. In fact, we do have one thing in common, Pete, and that is that we have both been on the pitch on the rugby league ground at Keighley. Unfortunately for me, it was a ball I delivered that was smashed over the top of the stand from the cricket ground. But there you go. What about that move then to Bradford Northern from Keighley? Because Roy Francis, I think, was around, wasn't he, in charge at Northern at the time, had been at Leeds, of course, as well. So I'm guessing probably another bit of hero worship in a sense. And I'm also guessing, that interest from a so-called bigger club at the time as well would have prompted it.
Yeah, it was really. I mean, the physio for Bradford Northern was a chap called Ronnie Barrett, who lived next door to us in Keighley. And Ronnie had been physio at Keighley for many years, and was then physio at Bradford for many years. And we used to talk to each other. And we don't want to use the word poaching, but he had a few words with me. And they said, the club are following your achievements, if that's the right word, following what you're doing. And do you fancy coming to Bradford? And as a young kid, you don't. So I'm not supposed to have this sort of chat with you. Straight away, I said, yeah, of course I would. But you were a semi-pro or a pro in those days, so that there had to be procedures. And not long after that, not all the Bradford Northern had approached Keighley, and paid a transfer fee, and away I went, 10 miles up the road to Odsall.
And we have straight in first team rugby, and if so, what was that like? Because you were
Yeah.
still pretty young, teenage at the time, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. I was, 19, 18, 19, yeah. Fantastic. 3 directors came round to the house one night. My stepdad had gone to the club, and me and my mum were in. And they'd rung up and said, we're going to come and see you and discuss terms. And they'd already spoke to Keith and agreed a fee. So it was just down to me whether I wanted to go or not, which obviously I did. Signed the form, and the night after, I was training with Bradford Northern. And Roy Francis, ex-Leeds and Hull and all those places. Fantastic coach, Roy Francis. Met me on the Thursday. We did a few sprints as we did in those days. Did a bit of ball work, prepared for the game. And then the Sunday, on the 31st of December, 1975, I signed for them and played my first game, I think, on the 1st of January, the year after, the day after, against Castleford at home.
Was it a memorable start? Did you any assists, any tries on that first day?
No, I don't think so. I did okay though. I think it was a close game. I don't think we won. I'm not sure about the result, to be honest. But I remember Castleford used to do this move involving Jeff Wraith. Oh, Jeff was a really good fullback in the days when every club had a good fullback, and Jeff didn't. I don't think he played for a great bit, but it was close to it. And they had this move where they involved Jeff. But I'd played for Yorkshire with Jeff, and I knew the move. And he was the guy that the first two did the dummy run, and the third scrum, they changed the move and he got the ball. And I read what they were doing, and he says, Roy, he says, Sarge, you knew what were happening, didn't you? And I said, well, of course I did, Jeff. We practiced it when we played for Yorkshire, and did it when we played for Yorkshire. So we had a good laugh. In those days, you could have laughs like that on the pitch. It was a bit slower, and players were probably a bit friendly with each other. But yeah, and we played Cass, and I can't remember, Jonathan, if we won or not, but that was my debut with Bradford.
You say players were friendlier, and I guess, yes, I've seen evidence of that where players who might have knocked 7 bells out of each other on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday if you were at Leeds would maybe go for a few beers during the week and have kept in touch with each other long term after their playing careers have finished. But at the same time, and I mentioned this to you when we were sorting out this interview today, Rugby League was notorious for that first 20 minutes as being the softening up period, wasn't it, in the days when you were playing in particular. That was the sort of old way of the game. Forwards trying to get dominance over the opposition, but backs as well at times. It wasn't always that friendly, is what I'm trying to say.
No, it was nastier. The players were playing for money. Yes, I try to explain this to younger people today. And some of the older guys, older people who watched the game but didn't really know the ins and outs. And you got more, or you got as much or more for winning a game of rugby on the old winning pay and losing pay situation than you did for a week's work. So, at that stage, I was working as a laboratory technician training on something like £25 a week back in the mid-70s, where you get maybe £50 a winning if you beat Cass at Odsal. So if you won the game, you got £25 more. Now, to get that money, because all rugby league teams were the same. It wasn't the case of like when Wigan brought professionalism into rugby league and were full-timers, everybody played winning money and losing money.
Mm-hmm.
Don't care what club it was. So we all had a procedure, a way to go about winning games or trying to win games. And at times it was nasty, but it was purely money orientated, because the gap between winning money, Jonathan, and losing money was massive. For example, 50 quid for winning, for beating Cass at Odsal, to £10 for losing. So £40 more.
Yeah.
And £40 in those days was worth a lot more than it is now. So all sorts of things took place for you to try and win money. But the beauty about it was, despite one or two unsavoury things that took place on the pitch, all players knew what they were going onto the pitch to do and what possibly could happen. So you're buying into it and you're investing into it, and you're coming off the pitch and you're having a pint with the same guy that's probably elbowed you in the jaw or giving you a quick left armer. So there we go. And people today don't understand that.
Yeah, so, I mean, some of the stuff that went on, it did make your eyes water as a child, thinking, do I really want to play this game? I'm quite happy to be standing there paying my money to watch it, because I know there's also a lot of skill involved, but I'm not sure I would have survived the first 20 minutes of some of them games that I watched. So hats off to anybody who took on the challenge, because it certainly was one.
Well, yeah, you're right. But you say you were a cricketer, I was a rugby player, and I wouldn't fancy playing cricket against some of these really quick bowlers without a helmet on back in the old days, where you would have said to me, well, it's my job to duck and to hit it with a bat. So I would probably say to you, well, some of these guys you've played cricket against and both your brothers in high level, crikey, you know what I mean? I'd be ducking out the way of the ball. So it's all about what you're pretty good at, really.
Well, I did play rugby, but only schools rugby, and I've got to say that I worked my way from centre, where you were, to full back, so I was always well out of it when that kicked off.
Good choice.
So let's talk about Bradford Northern, because while you were there, I mean, the club has one of its best periods. We can look at Super League, the early part of the Super League era, when as the Bulls, they absolutely nailed it, didn't they, for the first few seasons, and well, not just the first few seasons, a good decade and more. And prior to that, you think about the team that Trevor Foster was playing in, going back into the 40s, 50s. That was a real good period for the club. But when you were there, late 70s, turn of the 80s, again, a very successful period, winning a couple of championships, John Player trophies, Yorkshire Cups, Premierships, I think, as well. The one thing that eluded the club for Yonks, of course, was the Challenge Cup, as you're well aware. What about the players that you played with? Because in that first championship win of that period, 79-80, you know, an uncompromising side, I think, if you look at them on paper. Can you just talk us through your memories of that season and some of the players you were playing with, and why the team was so good?
Well, moving on from Roy Francis, who was a great coach, wanted to play attractive football. That's fine, Odsal, up to about late November, when you play in the winter, as we did. But Roy had a problem because he didn't have the forwards to plough it down the middle, to grind it out. He always wanted to play on the play of the ball and chuck it about, which you could never do at Odsal because of the conditions. So Roy left the club. He'd done really well, and we brought Peter Fox in. Now, Peter Fox was at that stage, tactically, very, very good. He was on top of his game as a coach, and he knew exactly how to play rugby league in that particular era he was involved in. And what he did, he signed Jimmy Thompson from Featherstone Rovers, who had 2 really bad knee injuries, and had toured twice, and people said he was past his best. Well, he wasn't, and he came in and he led by example, and he turned the team around. One player, couldn't imagine how a big impact he had on the side. And then Pete Fox signed Nigel Stevens to replace Johnny Wolford, a very clear nous standoff, removed from centre. He also signed Jeff Gratian from Dewsbury. Jeff again had a very bad knee injury, and injuries you play with in modern day game, you can soldier on. And Len Casey from Hull KR. Absolute monsters of the late 70s, early 80s rugby league game, these guys. And then he bought Keith Bridges from Featherstone, with hookers hooked for the ball. So he bought himself a pack, basically, and a very smart standoff. He turned Alan Redfern from an A-team scrum half into a first-team scrum half within months of arriving. He saw something in Alan Redfern that with the greatest respect to Alan, that other coaches hadn't seen. And then he had the fairies like me and Derek Parker and Dave Redfern, the guys that like to play near the touchline, compared to some of these big ogres we've bought. And we'd got the best defensive and high ball taking fullback in Rugby League in Keith Mumby. So we had basically a team of all talents, as they used to call it back in the day. And I think for once in my life as a Rugby League player, when we played anybody, home or away, we always thought, without being stupid in our heads, we always thought, because of the talent we had, we could win matches anywhere. And the Peter Fox League, when it got muddy, was perfect for Odsal. It just had all these little moves around the ball area that people couldn't put up with, couldn't cope with. And he just had the style of rugby based on a big, strong pack with the backs just follow him around the field, and it worked.
And was that, because I can't remember thinking about it in coaching terms by any stretch of the imagination as whatever I was at the time, a 13-year-old lad, but was that the sort of archetypal percentage rugby that Peter Fox talked about? And, was that the start of it for him, or did he already do that when he was coaching elsewhere and just brought that to the club?
Oh, before Jonathan, he'd done it at Featherstone, his first coaching club. He'd done it at Wakefield. And he went to Bramley and coached them to win Division 2. It was called Division 1 and Division 2 then. And he stayed a year at Bramley. Brought their Neil back with him, because Neil Fox, the great Neil Fox, played at Bramley with him. Brought him back to Odsal. He'd done it quite profusely with other clubs. This was his fourth club, and every club he'd been at, he'd been successful.
Now, just to explain, and maybe actually it's better coming from you than me, to those who are watching that are maybe not totally initiated with that term, percentage rugby, how would you describe it?
Percentage rugby was don't pass to anybody in another position unless they're in a better position than you are. If we have to play 6 tackles up the middle of the field when we're winning by 8 points or 6 points with 15 minutes to go, that's what we'll do. If you're stood on the wing or in the centre, and if one of your mates is flagging the forwards, go in, take the ball and play it like you're a forward. Don't run like a back where you make it tackle in touch or try to beat somebody on the outside. Yeah. It was all basically keyed up to the playing surface at Odsal and to the way he thought the game should be played at that time.
And keep it tight. And maybe as an addition to that, just thinking after your time there, but when Derek Fox, for example, went to play for Bradford, played at Featherstone, of course, that kicking game, kick it deep, and 5 drive, kick it deep and play the game at their end of the field. Make them make mistakes and coming out of their own end.
He always had a saying, did Fox, it was kick for effect. And what that meant was, don't just kick it and let's hope. Think about where you're kicking it. So they have to move their fullbackers and wingers towards the ball, but make sure we've got a straight line of defenders. And that means not just 3 or 4 chasing it, like used to happen in the old days. We'd all go up in one line just about, so there was nobody could get through us.
Is that an enjoyable form of the game to play? If it's bringing you success, I guess it must be to some extent. Or would you, if you were given a blank sheet of paper in the right conditions, would you rather play the Roy Francis style than the Peter Fox style?
The Peter Fox style won more trophies than the Roy Francis style won, because he didn't just do it at Odsal, to be fair, and I've mentioned the pitch conditions. He did it at Featherstone, Wakefield, Bramley. So the Fox formula worked. wherever he was at that time. So I'd have to say, if I wanted to be part of a successful team, I'd want to play for Peter Fox. The problem was with Peter, you didn't always get the ball. You could be stood around and get maybe 2 passes in the first half and 3 in the second, just tackle your backside. And that's what you had to put up with and expect when you were playing in the Peter Fox team.
Now, I didn't know Peter, but my time sort of working in the media was after his time as a coach, but I saw the television interviews that, you knew about the persona and the style. One thing that did come through when you saw him on television as a pundit occasionally or as a commentator was an immense passion for the game. He was almost like, he lived and breathed rugby league and just nothing else in his life.
He did. He was a very clever man as well. He was a mechanical engineer, qualified, apparently a very shrewd golfer. Nobody took him on at golf because he always had the mental capacity to think ahead of it. He was a very clever person. I could fall out with Peter Fox as much as I could fall out with a wife. That's about 3 times a day. That's only joking. We used to have some battles because I used to take a bit of angling. I've got to admit, I was a person that needed man management, and some of the things he said to you sometimes you didn't like. But as you get older and you think back, you think, well, yeah, he probably said that for a reason, and then it had an outcome. And he never dropped me. He always picked me. And I never forget one thing he said to me. I'd been injured. I think I did in my ankle or something. He said, in his old Featherstone speech, we missed thee today. And when a player's been injured, and with so many great players up there, you're worried about getting your players back. For somebody to say, we missed you today, as a head coach or a manager, that sort of lifts you up.
Yeah. So
he had his ways. Didn't agree with all of them. I didn't agree with how he spoke to certain people, including myself at times. But he was successful. He managed people. He did the job for the directors at the club that set him on. So I can't knock him, really.
These are interesting things, actually, that when you start to dig deeper beneath, the facts and figures on paper of Peter Roe or whoever's career, the things that we as spectators of the sport who've not been in the dressing room and listened to those conversations like to know a bit more of. So tell us, you say you didn't like how he spoke to you or to certain people. I mean, would, for example, if he was giving somebody a dressing down, would that be in front of a changing room full of lads and everybody? Would he take them outside? Would he deal with it differently to different people? What was he like in that respect?
Unfortunately, sometimes he did it in front of a group. Now, we've all been guilty of that at times, and really, it depends on the person you're giving a rollicking to. Some people need the arm around the shoulder. Some people need a quiet chat in the back room. Some people need a bollocking in front of the rest. But Peter always seemed to do it in front of other people. But he was pretty even-handed with that, I thought. Whoever got a bit of a telling off, he did it in front of the rest. So, you couldn't say, hey, come on. You can say what you want, but don't say it in front of others, because he did it generally. And
you mentioned that you took a bit of man managing. So do you want to elaborate on that? Tell us more about why you were like that and what sort of things it took to get the best out of you from those coaches that you played under.
Well, I never had a father. Well, I did, but he died when I was really young. And I sort of had I had a stepfather, but we didn't get on. He's dead now, and don't speak ill of the dead. But so I always needed a bit of a fatherly figure in my life. I never had one, really. And when some bloke that's not close to you gives you roasting in front of other people, you take it a bit personally. Now, what Roy Francis was very good at was giving you a roasting without shouting at you in a room where nobody else was. Mm-hmm. Now, that is what did it for me. It was a bit of managing Peter Roe was by doing the arm around the shoulder.
Right. So if you didn't get that, if he did have a blast at you in front of your teammates, then what was your reaction to that? Were you a sulker? Did you shout back at him? Did you not talk to him for a couple of days? Did you get angry and play even better on Sunday afternoon?
I'd argue back with him, and I would play better. Again, did what he said work? Play better because of what he said to me. I wouldn't sulk. I've never been a sulker. I've never been a person that don't speak to others. I can fall out with people, Jonathan, and be okay 5 minutes later. And I think I argued back with him more because he did it in front of other people rather than what he said. So he probably got the best out of me.
And obviously, we're going to come on to your coaching career, but it's probably pertinent to ask you at this point, you're talking about two coaches with, you look back through the history of rugby league, two great names there in Roy Francis and Peter Fox, and that's just at one of the clubs that you played at. What did you pick up from them that you then rolled into your own philosophies and the way you dealt with people as a coach yourself?
Well, Roy Francis was a magnificent trainer. He was very good on the fitness front, and I picked a lot of things up of him from there. He got people fit and a bit old-fashioned, brought people in to do a job for him in terms of how he wanted the game to be played. Peter Fox, I probably learnt more off in terms of tactical. And a lot of the stuff that he did, I brought into my early coaching scenario when I started off as a kid. Mm-hmm. All the percentage stuff was spoken about, and wearing the opposition down before you move the ball about. So I probably mimicked Peter's coaching methods more than Roy's, really, in terms of tactics.
Yeah, well, it served you pretty well when you look at what you won during your coaching career. More on that in just a moment, because before we leave the playing days behind, I don't think we can do that without talking about what happened when you got injured. And we've not really actually said much more. We can come back to that in a sec, because we've not really said too much about those trophies that you were present for. So Percentage Rugby wins the 79-80 championship under Peter Fox. Just give us, again, just a few thoughts on what those memorable moments were and those trophy wins were like.
Well, I unfortunately missed. I played in right up to and including the semis in the John Player Cup final when we beat Widnes at Headingley. I played every round. The semi-final was televised against Wakefield, and I read in a paper that I think it was Reflection, the Yorkshire Evening Post, said heavy surface will suit the slower backs of Bradford as opposed to the quicker backs of Wakefield. I thought, what was this guy talking about? And the Wakefield centres, I'm not saying anything wrong about it. The Wakefield centres were Jack Marston and Steve Diamond, a Welshman. Yeah. And I played along with, I think, Graham Evans, maybe, and myself in the centre for Bradford. And I could run, Jonathan. I wouldn't be weaknesses, but I could run. And I read this in the paper and I thought, Steve Diamond and Jack Marston. I'll suit the condition better than them because it's going to be a bit heavy and it'll suit my style. Well, that was a motivation in itself. Yeah. And I had a really good game against these two blokes. And unfortunately, I dislocated my shoulder. No, sorry, I injured my knee and couldn't play in the final, which when we beat Widnes. I got a medal. Didn't get paid. So that didn't happen then. So that was a memorable win for us, but I didn't play in the final. Again, the Yorkshire Cup went all the way through. Missed the final against York at Headingley. Got a medal. Premiership final at Swinton. Scored a try, beat Widnes. Absolutely fantastic. And in there somewhere, in those late 1970s years, to win, the league winner. We won the league, but on two occasions. Yeah. So yeah, fantastic to be at the top of your tree as a player. When I mean top of your tree, I mean playing with a team at the top of the tree with all those stars who were all modest lads who all get up for work on a Monday morning. Fantastic. Great.
So did you play inside Dave Barron's?
Yes,
He
was my.
Because he scored. I've just got. In fact, I have here the 1981-82 Rothmans Rugby League yearbook, for example, and he's still scoring plenty of tries. Then 78-79 season, it gives you the list of leading try scorers, and Dave Barron's was third with 25 tries, and David Redfern a bit lower down the list with 23. So there's a few assists there from a certain P. Roe.
Well, we like to think so. It's a funny thing, I remember, just as you've said that, I was working with a bloke one day who was a complete stranger to me, and he said, and I fell for this, unbelievably. He said, you play for Bradford Northern, don't you? I said, yeah. He said, who's your winger? I said, Dave Barron's. He said, he don't seem to get a lot of ball, does he? That's pretty much. I think you've gone through a Barron spell. I'm not scoring for about 5 matches.
Right.
Many things happen, like the centre forwards at soccer, didn't it?
Yeah.
And this fella really wound me up, and I've never forgotten it. And he'd been successful. He pressed the right buttons, didn't he? You know what I mean? But yeah, well, great Dave Barron. Yeah, he was a strong try-scoring winger. And if Dave had gone on the outside of you, 9 times out of 10 he'd scored a try. Yeah.
Talk us through that knee situation, and you get the knee injury, and as far as I can make out, you think you've got to call time on your career, and there's some insurance payout that Bradford Northern accept as your career ends. But then you do manage to get yourself fit. I'm not sure how long that took, but you weren't allowed to play for the club again. That must have been a real gut wrencher.
Well, legally it was wrong, as I found out years later. But I was a young man with newly married and a family, and it was all very traumatic. But top and bottom was I did my cruciate ligament real bad. The specialist said, in his opinion, he didn't think I'd play again. The club had a number of their players insured in case this happened, and they chose to go down the route of claiming the money rather than giving me the chance to play again. The 30 grand they cashed in and gave me 2 grand and said, see you later, sorry about this, but you're not going to play again, so we're cashing the money in. And I came away with 2 grand, and that was it. Finished. End of story.
And did you have any comeback on that? Did you take any legal action, for example, if you didn't agree with it?
Went to the Rugby League. They didn't really want to know. So it was a case of, I started to think myself that probably my knee never would be right, because I lost confidence in everything, really. A players' union started at that particular time. And I went to see this bloke who was a real Arthur Scargill type. And he said, I'll get this sorted out for you, but it might be that you never have to play for Bradford again. Apparently, if I played for Bradford again, they'd have to pay the money back.
Right.
So I was like a motor car without an MOT, really. So go on.
Because Bradford, well, I don't know. Were Bradford not prepared to pay that money back because it had already been spent, type of thing?
Yeah.
Did you feel let
definitely
down in that respect, then, that they weren't prepared to put themselves out to get you back on their playing roster? Is that what the feelings were?
Major devastation, felt betrayed, to be honest. Because I'm not being funny. I wasn't just an ordinary player. I was a decent player, and it was my life, and just all the emotional roller coaster that went through my head. I just felt betrayed. So, yeah, and so this guy got me playing again through some system where I had to play for whoever signed me for a few months. if my knee went again, I personally couldn't claim any money, but there wasn't an avenue for me to claim any money from anywhere. But to play as an amateur for a few months, and I think it was Christmas, and then if everything's fine, you can sign on as a pro again. And that's what I did for York for a season.
Yeah. And then that was first division at the time, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played on the top side, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then was it Graham Stedman around by then?
Graham was just coming. Yeah, he was just coming into the team.
Yeah,
Just signed him. Yeah.
Good player. And obviously Hunslet then, I think, to finish things off.
Yeah, well, travelling got a bit too much for me, and I had a job where I was rushing around and driving like an idiot to get to places. I thought, well, this is going to end up in a disaster zone. So I signed Hunslet a little bit closer to home, and had 3 really fantastic seasons there under another really good coach, Paul Daly, who was a master of managing players. Super lad, very underrated coach, very well connected in the Castleford area for getting juniors and stuff. Knew everybody, and he loved Hunslet. He absolutely loved the club. And I played for them for 3 years and got through the 3rd round of the League Cup against Cass, and we had a good spell there. Yeah.
So you hung your boots up after all that. In what year was that?
Well, I went to Keighley for 1 year. Sadly, the coach had died with cancer halfway through the season. So guess who they asked to do the coaching for him? Me. So I sort of went into it basically as a novice, but was given the opportunity to try a few things. And then at the end of that season, I retired. I went to play amateur. Yeah.
Right. That was sort of mid-80s. And then you started to get some more serious bites at coaching jobs. I'm trying to think, where did you get your first real opportunity? Was it Halifax?
Yeah, I'd been at Dudley Hill the year before. We'd won the National Conference League.
Yeah.
We were standing with some great lads, trained them to death, and played all sorts of fantastic rugby on a really flat, dry, open pitch at Dudley Hill. And then Halifax were looking for a coach. They'd sort of gone out of business and bankrupt after the Chris Anderson era. And we started with nothing. We got promoted as second in the league. We played the Australian Tourists midweek, which was a fantastic occasion. We got promoted as second. We got through to the Premiership final. Lost to Salford, in the final. And then they said to me, at your age, we don't think you've got the necessary experience to coach us in. It wasn't Super League then, it was Division 1, but it was Super League, really. So I said, fine, okay, that's what you want. They brought Roger Millward in, spent a fortune, and they brought Mal Reilly in. So they brought in 2 really top-line coaches after me, which they said they wanted. So I went to Keighley and coached them for 2.5 years. 3 years, I think.
That would have been going back to the start of the Cougars era, would it?
Cougar Mania. Yes, it was.
Cougar Mania. Were you the man that induced all that?
No. No, that was down to the 2 Micks, Mick O'Neill and Mike Smith.
I know, yeah. Just pulling your leg.
Yeah,
the 2 Micks.
Yes, I know, mate.
But to be fair, I mean, we're crediting Bradford Bulls with what they did at the start of the Super League era, and what they did there in that first few years of Cougar Mania must have been fantastically exciting times for the locals down there.
Oh, it was unprecedented. They'd never seen anything like it. I think Keighley had 1 or 2 really good spells in the late 30s and the mid 50s, but after that, Keighley never done much really. And I signed a lot of lads that had played for me at Halifax that Halifax didn't think they were good enough to play at their level, and Martin Wood and Jason Ramshaw, people like that. And we signed all these players from all over, and we just turned it round overnight, and the crowd started to sort of build, and the noise started to get louder. It was a phenomenal change to what had happened in previous years.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I do. I did have first-hand experience of it down there because my first ever BBC broadcast, would you believe, was Keighley versus Featherstone Rovers one Friday night on a telephone plugged into the usual socket there in the main stand at Keighley. That was a little bit later, late 90s, after that initial thrust of Cougar Mania. But I do remember the speakers blaring out and Mike on the pitch and all sorts of stuff going on. Before that, you'd won the Division 3 as it was when that came in. You'd won the title with them, hadn't you? That was your first trophy as a professional coach.
Yes, it was, yeah. First trophy the club had won for 90 years, I believe. Special occasion.
How proud are you to do that, your hometown club, to bring them some success?
Really proud, fantastically proud, yeah. It was, I'd watched them as a kid and, like I said earlier, and played for them and come back and played and then coached. So I'd been through the mill in terms of in the things I'd done. I'd mopped the dressing room floors when the kit men went on strike. True story. This was that same season we're talking about when we won the league. Me and my assistant Ian Ferris, we packed the kit up one day because they refused to come back off strike. Did the kit men, done everything, even run the baths for the lads before baths were banned.
Brilliant. And obviously you've had spells at the likes of Barrow and Swinton and Featherstone. But I'm thinking in your time, in one of your spells at Barrow, because you've hopped around 2 or 3 clubs on 2 or 3 occasions, haven't you? One of your spells at Barrow, again, a proud moment for you, 1994, League 2, Division 2 champions, I should say, and Coach of the Year.
2004.
Sorry, 2004, my apologies.
No, it's all right. Yeah. Well, we had a really good side at Barrow that year. The thing about, if you want to be successful in Cumbria, you've got to realise that there are only a certain amount of players that live in those areas that are capable of winning trophies at that level. If you want to go any higher, you've got to bring people in. The beauty was when we were in Division 2 that the players that were living in the area were good enough to win us a trophy. So they weren't travelling miles to come to training and travelling miles to go home because Barrow is out on a limb. They were all local lads. And I used to say to these lads, right, we're not going to do any video stuff. If you want me to help you improve you as a player, come in and see me in the Barrow shop because I was full-time at lunchtime and I'll edit tapes and we'll talk about stuff and we'll talk about how well you've played or what you need to do to improve. All we do at training, no meetings, nothing, we'll just do the training. I said, that won't last more than an hour and a quarter. And if we've had a bad session or a good session, you're on your way home to see your wives and kids or whoever. I said, but if you want me to improve as a player, come down in your lunch break or whenever you can during the day and we'll look at a video or a DVD as they are. And it worked absolutely brilliantly, that system. And the lads loved it. And we won the division outstandingly. The problem was the year after, 2005, we had a better team the year before, and a lot of the players didn't fancy it. One or two, with a couple of us as lived in the town, moved to Leigh to play for Leigh. So we had a very poor team the year after, and we couldn't get nobody to come up to play for us. Because nobody wants to travel to Barrow to train.
Yeah, difficult area. I mean, one of the great traditional areas for playing the game. But unfortunate that it is, those 3 clubs up there are so far out of the way from the rest of the sport, professional sport at least, that it must be difficult for anybody. So you clearly did a very fine job with that. Prior to that, of course, we've jumped right past your spell as a Super League coach with Wakefield. Is that, I mean, that lasts for less than a year, I think, doesn't it? And is that one of those things where you look back and think, I just needed, like most coaches, a bit more time, or were there other reasons for it being so short?
No, I didn't need any more time. It's a nightmare. Peter Fox had transformed from a coach to football manager, and he wanted to interfere too much. And that in itself wasn't too bad a thing, because he still had some great ideas, but it didn't rankle well with the players. Because in a situation where you're coaching players on a full-time basis as opposed to a part-time basis, as I've previously described, the players need to know who's the boss. And he used to come down to the ground, changing the team, shouting, bawling about who we'd picked. The players heard him, you can't pick him, you can't do that. And it was from the first month I'd been there, I knew I'd made a massive mistake. I wasn't in charge. There was a chairman, a CEO, chief executive officer, a rugby manager or whatever Peter, football manager, director, what Peter was, and then there was the head coach, me. And it eroded my confidence. I was getting brought into board meetings. Why aren't you picking him? We don't agree with what you're doing. A spectator complained about you on Sunday because you came out of your position at the top of the stand and you bumped his arm into his shoulder on the way past. And all these little nitpicking things were just a nightmare. And I thought, I don't need this.
Yeah.
And I went into the board and I said to him, listen, it isn't really working out this. We're halfway through the season. We're fourth from bottom. We'd actually not played badly. What are your thoughts for next season? Because obviously I need to get back into normal stream of working. I was still in my 40s then, late 40s. And they had a meeting and said, we won't be renewing your contract next year. I said, fine. I was absolutely delighted. Mm-hmm. It might sound weird, but the pressure of the job, because of what was happening, was too much. Mm. So we agreed a settlement, and away I went, and I didn't regret 1 minute the ending of it all.
That's an interesting take, because when you look down the CV, and naturally, I would guess, because as a player you wanted to be the best player you could be. You know, they had the agony of missing out on a possible Great Britain tour, let's face it, as a player. So as a coach, I'm sure you want to be winning as many pots as you can, but doing it at the highest level with the best players. And that was your one sort of Super League opportunity, really, wasn't it?
It was.
You might, I'm aware, looking in from the outside, that you might regret that another one didn't come along, but you don't sound like you're that bothered, really.
No, I think I'd been through the ringer. I'd been through the ringer with all these clubs and learnt my trade. And my idea of coaching at Super League, my vision was a completely different vision to the reality. And it wasn't good.
So that relationship with Peter Fox that you had as player and coach, now as coach and director of rugby, was it the bad stuff of the player-coach relationship that was sort of resurfacing rather than the good stuff when you were at Wakefield with him?
No, I felt let down by him because he got me there under false pretenses. He really wanted to be the coach. I wanted to coach through me. And the way he went about it wasn't good. So we felt, disappointed, and we never spoke. Sadly, he's died, Peter. Nothing against him, but we never spoke after that. Very sad, really.
It is. That's sad to hear of such a well-respected coach, well-respected guy.
And may I say, Jonathan, may I say that respect I have for him is still there, despite what happened at Wakefield.
That's good to hear.
I say that on record.
Good to hear. You did mention that you've argued with people, and these things are usually cleared up within 5 minutes. I picked up on an article going back from about a decade or so ago when you were coaching at Barrow, and Dave Woods was in charge at Castleford. And Dave Hadfield, the godfather of rugby league writers, wrote an article in The Independent suggesting that you were both going to be possibly up on a disciplinary charge with the RFL for a bit of a spat. I don't know whether you want to unearth the past again or not, but I thought this is interesting. I didn't ask you about this.
No problem. it was the most weird build-up to anything I've ever known, really. We were struggling. It was a year after the promotion. We were struggling, and Cass were in the same division, and were top, beating everybody. And I got a phone call from Dave Woods. No one never knew him really. I knew who he was, but I didn't know him personally. I said, well, I won't do the Aussie accent. He said, we're coming up here in a couple of weeks' time, Peter. He said, can you recommend a hotel, comfortable hotel where the lads can relax? And I'd also like to send a representative of mine up, maybe this week, to have a look at your pitch, to have a look at your dressing rooms, and at the same time measure your pitch, because I believe it's a wide pitch. He obviously fancied it because I like to throw the ball about with it. And I thought this was rather a bizarre blooming phone call. But I didn't have an argument with him. I said, yeah, come up. I said, I can recommend so-and-so hotel. And if you want to send somebody up to look at the ground, no problem. Because if I'd have said, no, don't come and look at the ground, he'd probably have sent somebody up anyway. So I thought, well, no problem. So I said, yes, Dave, absolutely no problem. And this is the hotel I recommend. But before you go, before you put the phone down, I want you to do me a favour. And he said, yeah, what's that? I said, send me a video of your last game against Rochdale Hornets, because we were playing Rochdale in between them, between the Rochdale game and the Cass game. And to people that don't know what we do as coaches, we study the opposition, and we do it by ringing the coach up and getting swapping videos and swapping DVDs. That's a done thing in rugby league. Always do your homework on the opposition. Videotape never, or video or whatever it was, DVD never arrived. So I put myself out. I'd help this guy out. I recommended a hotel for him. All I wanted was him to post me a DVD or a video of Rochdale Hornets. No problem. I'm still waiting for the DVD stroke video to arrive. So I thought, right, monkey, I'll show you. So those dressing rooms that he'd sent somebody up to look at, and I still don't know if anybody came or not, because I weren't always at the club during the day. I got a couple of the full-time Aussie lads to paint the dressing rooms black. Their dressing room black. But not only paint it black, but paint it on the Friday before they came on a Sunday, so the fumes would still be fairly rampant. That's what we did. That started it all off.
You naughty boy. So,
you naughty boy.
Well,
Yep.
according to Dave's article, and just bear with me for a moment, because I better make sure that we mention this with factual accuracy. It's from Thursday, the 6th of October, 2011, saying that two coaches face a rugby league investigation over allegations that they were involved in an angry clash with each other after a National League One match. The league has called for reports before deciding whether to proceed with charges against Peter Roe of Barrow and Castleford's Dave Woods. At the time, you were reported as saying, my conscience is clear, though you admitted that there had been tensions before the game. And you said Mr. Woods had complained that we'd painted the away dressing room and claimed that his players had been affected by the fumes. They beat you anyway by 36 points to 22. But then it was reported here that as you approached Dave Woods to shake hands and congratulate him, you held out your hand and said that it was the fact that they were full-time that had made the difference between the two sides. You said that he swore at you and pushed you on the chest and sent you backwards, and you had scores of witnesses that saw that. And he, in response, claimed that you had challenged him to a fight behind the stand, something that you denied. So come on, what happened?
Right. Game up, we'd played really well. And as usual, for the last 10 minutes, they scored 2 tries, which made the score look more convincing than it was. I was really proud of the lads that day because they really got stuck into Cass. So end of the game, we are both outside, opposite our respective dugouts. He's at the Castleford dugout and I'm at Barrow 1. I walked up to him, held my hand out. He said, and I said, the difference today has been the fact that you're full-time, nearly Super League, and we're part-time. He says, F off, you're an effing crap coach, and you're coaching an effing crap team, and you'll effing well get relegated at the end of the season. Well, he got one of them right, because we did get relegated. And I said to him, there's no need to be like that, and tapped him on the shoulder. He says, I pinged his ear with my fingers. Lie. Didn't. As I tapped him on the shoulder, he's a big man, is Mr. Woods. He pushed me backwards towards the advertising hoardings. And I said to him, if you want to continue this conversation, let's do it round the back, away from Joe Public. Now, if he thought that meant let's get it on behind the stand, well, that's his interpretation. I can't do anything about that. But no way did I want to have a fight with him round the back of the stand. And that is what happened.
Okay. Well, so we've got your version of events, and obviously he's reported, or his version was reported in the newspaper at the time. Did we manage to eventually shake hands? What happened in terms of the disciplinary side of things with the Rugby Football League?
Right. Well, this guy, an ex-CID man that the Rugby League used to employ to investigate disciplinaries, came to my house. And I told him exactly what I told you. And I said to him, I don't care what he said. I said, I'm telling you what happened. And if you want to go interview loads of people in Barrow, go and speak to them. I said, you'll probably get 6 people that saw what happened as Barrow fans, and 6 Cass fans, and they might tell the truth, or some might, I don't know. Anyway, I said, and I'll attend any disciplinary, and I will repeat what I've said to you. And as I said to you just now, Jonathan, that's what happened. Anyway, nothing happened. No case to answer was the outcome. But I saw him a year later when I'd gone back to Keighley as director of football to a disciplinary at Red Hall with a player, and he was sat there with a player, and I walked up to him and I said, listen mate, let's just, put things to the past, held my hand out, and he said, no, you're all right. And that was it. So I thought, that's up to you. That's how you want to be.
Okay. So that's behind us. We move on. And I just wanted to really, because we're getting towards closing time on this particular episode, Peter, it's been fascinating talking to you. I just want you to tell me, both as a player and as a coach, what you think your strengths and weaknesses were, and why.
Good question. Strengths and weaknesses. Strengths, I think, motivation, being able to amplify my philosophy on the game as a winner, and as a coach. And one key element that Maurice Bamford once told me, always choose your assistant coaches properly. Don't inherit anybody, and make sure that your assistant coach doesn't want your job. So he said, last thing he said to me about that, always get an assistant coach that you can trust as much as you can trust your mother. So that's another strength that you've got to have. And I think on occasions, that's something that I've not done. I'm not going to mention any names or anything.
Oh, come on.
I can mention some really good lads I've had with me, like Ian Fairhurst at Keighley and Dean Marwood at Barrow. But I was let down by a guy that helped me out at Wakefield. And I was let down once by a guy that helped me up in Swinton. No names, no back drill. Weaknesses. Difficult to admit to weaknesses, isn't it? But we all have them.
That's why I wanted to ask you it, yeah. Because you don't tend to shirk anything that I ever ask you. So I thought I'd ask you this.
Weaknesses are, I think, struggling to cope with defeat, not able to get over defeat as quickly as I should do to be able to prepare for the week after. And sometimes, especially early on in my coaching career, probably carried it on too much into the week. And it's like your players obviously want to forget about it and get over it. So why aren't you getting over it, coach? And also, I think the worst thing about being a coach is dropping somebody. It's terrible when you have to leave somebody out, especially if it's a situation where the guy you're picking in front of him isn't much better and you don't know which one to pick. So explaining to the one that you've left out why you've done it. And my assistant coach here always said to me, you spend too much time nearly apologising to a player for leaving him out when he should make it basically A, B, C, do it. So that's probably a weakness that I had. And I think the third weakness is when you've had a string of defeats, you've not got to think that you're going to get sacked. And despite what any football manager or rugby coach says, we all think we're going to get sacked when we've lost 2 matches. But you've not got to carry that into the training sessions with you.
Does that mean, is that a case of you therefore saying you need to just believe in, your philosophy and it will pull through?
Yes.
Yeah.
You do. And you have self-doubt because you think the players are losing confidence in what you're doing. And that's what they call losing the dressing room. And we've all lost dressing rooms, everybody.
Yeah.
At times. It happens. It's life.
Yeah. People watching who remember you, who know you possibly, but who remember you as a player and a coach, will probably have a couple more questions that they'd like asking, such as what's Peter Roe doing now apart from being a dodgy Airedale and Wharfdale Cricket League umpire, he said, smiling.
Yeah. Very dodgy. Earrings going, eyes are going, yeah. What am I doing now? I work for the probation service. Okay. I've been working for the place for about 14, 15 years now, supervising offenders and allocating offenders and looking after them, if that's the right word, and making sure they're behaving themselves, all that stuff.
Do you have, you said you don't talk about rugby league much. Do you have any involvement whatsoever in the game? Do you go watch matches anymore?
No. Not been for years, sadly. I watch it on TV. I still love the game and I still stick up for it. I have fights on Facebook with rugby union fraternity about stuff, and I stick up for the game like it's my own children. And yeah, I'm still a big rugby man because it's been good to me. It's been bad for me and good for me. That's ups and downs, but I appreciate it's earned me a bob or two over the years, and I've enjoyed it. I met some great people, and so I love the game still.
And finally, I guess, from the cricket fans watching, when are you actually going to improve as an umpire?
I think I've got past improvement, really. I have one big worry is this year, because of the COVID, you can't get into doctors. I always have my ears fringed. About 2 weeks before, true story, always have my ears fringed about two weeks before the season starts. So I might be absolutely hopeless this year. More hopeless than I am normally.
Well, I just hope it doesn't happen to be on an occasional free weekend that I get during the season where I might strap some pads on, because if I walk out and you're standing at the other end, I know I'm stone dead wherever that ball is.
Yeah, you just might as well not bother. Bat number 11.
Pete, you've been a great guest. It's been a pleasure to have you on Sporting Lives. Thanks for being so candid. And we wish you all the best for the future. Thanks once again.
Jonathan, thank you very much indeed. My pleasure.